Hey everybody, Anthony Ragler from Black and White Coffee Roasters. I'm here today to give you guys a quick little tutorial on how I like to brew coffee at home. I brought in some of the tools that I actually have at home and supplemented with a couple of things that we have over here in our training lab. But to start, I tend to brew coffee at home when I do pour overs on the Kalita 185. The wide bed for pouring as well as the flat bed for extraction tends to give me some of my favorite flavors out of coffee. We'll go through that as we brew our coffees here today. But we started off with a little bit of ground coffee. I ground 22 grams of coffee. We're only going to use about 20 grams of this, but we're gonna get to why I ground a little bit extra in a few moments. But first, I like to pre-wet my coffee filter. I'm gonna be honest, this is just a habit that was drilled into me when I first started working in coffee, but it is not an absolute mandatory thing. If you prefer to do your coffee without pre-wetting your filter, totally fine. But this is just something that's always worked for me. So we're gonna start with that. I'm gonna dump out this water really quickly. Let that drip out. I'm obviously gonna cut this portion off. Okay. So here we go. Now, next thing is, prior to me pouring this ground coffee into the filter, I like to use this little tool that I got from Fellow. It is called their Shimmy Coffee Sieve, and pretty much it's a sifter to remove the fines out of any set of ground coffee. Now, at home, because I work as a technician, I don't have like the traditional at-home grinder. I actually have a old espresso grinder that I rigged to make pour-overs. So I'm pretty prone to getting a lot of fines in my coffee. So this sifter actually works really well for me because it allows me to get a lot of those fines out, allow me to have more even particle size across all of my grinds. And what it tends to do as far as the flavor of the coffee is it allows us to get really, really bright, juicy, popping flavors out of coffee at home, which is something that I really appreciate because a lot of people are used to having different water at home and it makes their coffee a little bit more murky, a little more muddled, as opposed to what they get when they're inside of a cafe. So pretty much you pour your coffee inside this sifter and you just shake about 30 seconds or so. And as it removes those fines, in my house, on that grinder that I use, I lose maybe about a gram and a half of coffee when I do this. So that's why I grind a little higher. So if I'm gonna use 20 grams on my input, I'll actually grind about 22 grams of coffee and then just pour the exact amount that I need into my filter. So yeah. So here we go. I'm quickly pour in 20 grams of this coffee. And pretty much all of the grinds that I do not need, that are too fine, will be at the bottom of this sifter, which I will show you in just a brief moment. All right, so here we have our coffee. And at the bottom of this, if you would like to see, we have our fines. All right, now at this point, it's time to start brewing coffee. If you don't have an Akaya scale or a scale at home that will also tell you the time that you were brewing in addition to the weight that is in there, I suggest just using your phone as a stopwatch. And that's kind of one of the things that I do sometimes as well. So from here, pretty simple. Press the start button as I start brewing. I have 20 grams of coffee in here, so I'm going to pour about 60 grams from my balloon. Nice. And try to wet all of the grinds at the beginning. And I let my coffee bloom somewhere between 30 to 45 seconds. For the sake of today, I'm going to do 30 seconds because we've already had this coffee ground for a little while, but typically I would go to about 45 seconds. So now from here, I do 20 grams on the input and I'm looking to get 330 grams on the output. So from 60, on my first pulse, I pour from 60 to 150 grams. And I'll let that go for about 10 to 15 seconds and allow the coffee to extract a little bit, but not letting all of the water pour through the grind bed of coffee. So about, in this case, it'd be about 105. I'll pour again, and I'll go from 150, and I'll pour another 90 grams to 240. All right. We're at about 1 minute and 25 seconds on our brew thus far. I'll let this go to about 1 minute and 40 seconds, and then I'll do my final 90 grams of water poured over the top to get to our 330 and allow our coffee to drip through fully from there. And then from here, we'll just allow the rest of the water to drip out. It should finish somewhere about in the 3 minute to 3 minute and 30 second range. And we have our cup of coffee. Typically, I like to do a little bit of a stir afterwards. I'll stir the extracted coffee through before I make my pour. But other than that, it's a pretty simple method. Get straight to the point and makes a really good cup of coffee. All right, now that all of the water has gone through our grind bed, just going to remove the Kalita filter, place this to the side. And we're going to, in this case, just do a quick little swirl, kind of bring all of the different parts of the extraction together. And here's our cup of coffee. Also, I did forget to mention earlier that I like to brew my coffee a little bit lower of a temperature than most. At home, I brew my coffee around 198 degrees. I tend to notice that with household weather, whether it be filtered, whether it be from a faucet, it tends to lead to a little bit more brighter and juicier flavors when brewed at a lower temperature, as opposed to going to 205, which could tend to kind of scorch the coffee that you have at home. So thank you guys for sitting in with us today. Hope you guys enjoy this recipe. Feel free to try it at home and tell us your thoughts.